I extend a very warm welcome to you all to this session of Ek Mulakat brought to you by Prabha Khaitan Foundation, Shri Cement and Taj Hari Mahal. It is presented by the Ehsaas Women of Jodhpur, Sushma Neeraj Sethia, Shailja Singh and I, Preeti Mehta. Prabha Khaitan Foundation is dedicated to the social, cultural and educational advancement of the society. We organize panel discussions and interactive sessions with prominent personalities from various fields to spread awareness and information about a wide range of subjects. Ek Mulakat is an exclusive initiative for guests other than the literary background, which allows patrons to rendezvous with legends and stalwarts from various walks of life. Today's Mulakat is with 2 times Grammy Award winner, US Billboard 1 artist, GQ Hero 2020, Ricky Kej, an internationally renowned Indian music composer and environmentalist. He has performed at prestigious venues in over 30 countries, including the UN headquarters in New York and Geneva. Ricky has won over 100 musical awards in 20 countries. He serves as the UNESCO Brand Ambassador, for Global Ambassador for Kindness, UNCCD Land Ambassador, UNICEF Celebrity Supporter and Ambassador for Earth Day Network. A genius on the keyboard, his music is a living testimony to his personality. With several feature films, 17 studio albums and over 3,500 commercials to his credit, he has won over the music world. At such a young age, he has multiple awards to his credit, the most notable being the Grammy Awards for his albums Winds of Samsara and Divine Tides. Today, we are super excited to have amongst us, and it's a proud privilege to be in conversation with the one and only Ricky Kej.
And so my parents knew that this is the direction that he's going to take, and they were quite confident that I would be successful as a professional musician, but they were very scared that I would not complete, that degree of dentistry. But I stuck to my commitment to them. I finished off the degree, and at the end of 5 years, I got it. I did not know anything in dentistry, but I got a degree certificate. So that's how it was. And I went to my father and I told him that dentistry is an extremely noble profession and it's a really important profession in our country. But at the same time, it's not for me. So that is why I want to be a professional musician, and they understood that by then. And then, as I say, there was no looking back after that. So instead of my musical career being from 5 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning, it was 24 hours a day. So that's what happened after that. And so basically that.
But through your growing up years, you never had any formal musical training.
Correct.
So how important is it?
So true. So till my plus 2, that is my 11th and 12th, I actually did not have any formal training in music, and I was already winning a whole lot of musical awards and and performing everywhere and traveling and all of that stuff. But then I realized that if music is going to be a profession, especially in my first year of dentistry, I realized that if music is going to be a profession, then I need to treat it with a lot more seriousness and I need to treat it with a lot more respect. So that is when I decided to take up a formal training in Western classical and Hindustani classical music. So I would do 2 classes of Hindustani classical music a week. So that was also very difficult because I had not mentioned that in the previous question, that my Hindustani classical classes 2 times a week would be from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then I would go to college, So that's how it was. So basically I would barely sleep. And so basically that, because I did the formal training in music because I felt that I would be I believe that, when it comes to the arts is about breaking the rules, That's what, pushing the boundaries, breaking the rules and all of that stuff. But foundation and what the rules are in order for you to understand that where can I push the boundaries, where can I take my own liberties and stuff like that. And also, I realized that when it comes to music, when you're interacting with music.
Tell us about Divine Tides, about your collaboration with Stuart Copeland. We would love to know.
The band which had Sting in it. So Stuart Copeland is considered, just a little bit about him, he's considered to be the greatest drummer in the history of music. So that's how amazing he is. And also, sold 75 million copies of his albums, and one of the greatest bands of all times. Also, he's composed music for 50 Hollywood movies, including Oscar-winning movies like Wall Street and Rumblefish and all these movies. So he's quite an amazing person. So I thought, let me just reach out to him. So through a common friend, I reached out to him and I sent him pieces of the music, and he absolutely loved it, to my surprise. And then at the end of the year, we released the album. The album was very, very successful. It went on the Billboard charts. Millions of streams and things. I had not even met Stuart Copeland in person till then. So we've not met each other because it was the pandemic. Like, he would work in Los Angeles, I would work in Bangalore. We would have all these phone calls and all of that stuff. I had to sync my sleep timings with him. So father, I would call him. That kind of a relationship we shared. So after we got nominated, then we decided that all right, we'll meet. When we'll meet when we go to Las Vegas for the Grammys. And he lives in Los Angeles. Get nominated in December, and the Grammy ceremony happens around February. And there is absolutely no way to find out if you've actually won. You have to actually go to the ceremony because it's an automated process of actually creating those envelopes, which the celebrity opens up on stage and announces the winner. It's just a shock, and it's the same thing with the Oscars too. So what happened is that we decided that we'll meet at the Grammys, and then a few days before that he said that no, I'm doing this concert in Nashville, which is 7 days before the Grammys. Why don't you come to that concert? So I said fine. So I flew into Nashville, attended his concert, and it was absolutely amazing. So I met him at the after party, and it was a beautiful meeting because it was the first time we met each other, first time I could give him a hug again, and talk about, it was quite a surreal experience for me, and a really in the 2 minutes. But exactly at 1 minute and 45 seconds, they will start playing music. The conductor will start playing music, and the music will swell in volume. And exactly at 2 minutes, your mic will be shut off. No matter who you are, your mic will be shut off. So that's because it's a television show, and it is a live television show, right? It's broadcast to 180 countries. So the thing is that they cannot afford to even waste a couple of seconds. So that's why at exactly 2 minutes, your mic will be shut off. And there's a big prompter in front which says wrap up, at 1 minute 45 seconds when the music starts playing. So this year in 2022, we received an email, and the email said that it's not 2 minutes anymore, it is 45 seconds. Okay, so it is 45 seconds this year, and only one person can speak. No two people, only one person can speak. So let's say if the first person goes up and they give a scenario that let's say if one person goes up and speaks for 15 seconds and then the second person approaches the mic, they will shut off the mic. So it's only one person or 45 seconds, that's all. So basically that. So then I spoke with Stuart and I told him that obviously you're going to have to speak, because worldwide if people say that okay, it's Stuart Copeland and Ricky that has won the Grammy, and if Stuart Copeland is going to be standing in a corner and I'm going to be taking the mic, then people are just going to feel weird. And I also told him that it makes much more sense for me if you praise me rather than I praise myself, So he understood that, even though he was very adamant that I speak. And then we went up, we sat at the ceremony, and then we were announced as being the winners. Of course, that was a beautiful moment. And he knew that person. So he goes up in front of the mic, he makes a quick joke, and then he says that this album is all about Ricky. He's the person who started this album. It's all about him. It's his music. And then he said that this award is for him. So Ricky, take the mic. And then they just started playing the music when I was walking towards the mic. And I did not know what to say because I had not prepared a speech. So I was walking up to the mic, and then they started playing the music, and then he looks, and this is all on YouTube. You can check it out. My acceptance speech is on YouTube. So he looks at the conductor, he points at him and he says, "Don't you dare." And then the conductor puts down his baton. And then he looks at me, he's like, "Say whatever you want to say." So then I started speaking, and then I crossed the 45 seconds. The conductor started playing the music again. Again he looked at the conductor, he's like, "Don't." And then I finished off my speech. It took me about 60 seconds, finished off the speech, and then we walked off. So that is the kind of person, Stuart Copeland is, that imagine Grammys, the biggest stage for music. And of course, he's won 5 Grammys in the past. But the thing is that for a person like him, anybody would have wanted to take the spotlight, and take those 45 seconds. But he was so secure with his abilities and his legendary status that he felt that all right, the stage can be taken by me, So and we still speak with each other all the time. And I think about 2 months after the Grammys, he sent me a message that like he was looking at my social media, the amount of traveling that I was doing and the amount of concerts. So he was saying that I see that you're not resting on your laurels, and you're traveling the world and you're performing everywhere. And he said that while you're doing all of that and you're going for world domination, that's what he said. He said that I'm sitting by my phone and waiting for you to call me to make some more music. So that is the kind of person he is,
So we look forward to another collaboration. You have often said that you're spreading the Indian philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means that the world is one family. And when we think of the world as being one family, we think of being in harmony and peace with other humans. But I believe you take it a step further. So can you tell us about that?
That's the thing. When it comes to coexistence, when it comes to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, when we think about it nowadays, the only thing, of course, the world is one family. Everybody knows what it means. The only thing that comes to our mind is living in peace between Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Jains, basically different parts of the human species. Because somewhere along our journey, we've completely forgotten that we are not the only species on this planet. We're one among millions and millions of species on this planet. And Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or coexistence, not only in our culture, but any ancient culture anywhere in the world, has always meant living in absolute peace and absolute harmony with every single entity on this planet, whether living or non-living. In fact, there is the Ishavasyam Idam, the mantra, which is used as an auspicious beginning to ceremonies and things like that. So the Ishavasyam Idam, Mahatma Gandhi had once translated the Ishavasyam Idam mantra, and the Ishavasyam Idam mantra says that every single atom on this planet, or in this universe rather, every single atom on this universe, is made of the divine. Whether that atom goes on to making something that is living or non-living, So that's pretty amazing. So the thing is that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, according to our ancient scriptures, means not only living in peace and harmony between all of us humans, which we're not doing a very good job of right now, but it also means going a step further of living in peace and harmony with all life. That is the forest, the wildlife, nature. And not only that, but living in peace and harmony with the elements of nature, the water we drink, the air we breathe, the land we walk on. Because if you look at it, all the problems that we face right now, whether it's climate change, whether it is species extinction, loss of biodiversity, air pollution, global warming, everything is linked to us not being in coexistence, because everything in this world is basically a delicate balance of ecosystems and delicate balance of nature. And if we are not in coexistence, we are disturbing that delicate balance of nature. And this delicate balance of nature is what is serving everybody, because everyone is a part of that delicate balance of nature. And so we serve that delicate balance of nature in equal parts, and the delicate balance of nature serves us again in equal parts. But the idea is that this balance needs to be maintained, or in today's times it needs to be restored. So that's what Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is all about.
The past couple of days I've been listening to your music on loop, and I'm mesmerized. I admit I hadn't heard any of your music earlier, but it's amazing. They capture the beauty of God's creations, touch the soul, and take us to a world of wonder and peace. You say that your music has been a dedication to nature, compassion, environmental sustainability. So just can you elaborate how?
So the thing is that along with being a musician, from the time I remember, I've always been an environmentalist. So two pillars that have dictated my whole life and every single life decision of mine. So while for the first 8 years of my life I was in America. I was living in this really small town called Roanoke Rapids, which is in North Carolina, on the border with Virginia and North Carolina. And so my parents used to live literally in the middle of nowhere, because there were a lot of wooded areas and a lot of forest kind of areas around our home. So we would have a lot of the so-called creepy crawly animals that would enter our home, like snakes and lizards and chameleons and frogs and insects and things like that. And of course my teachers and even my parents would always advise me that if you see any of these animals, like step on them and kill them immediately, or or run away from them and things like that. And my immediate question to them would be that that if you're just supposed to kill them on sight, then why do they exist? They obviously have some purpose. Why do they exist on this planet? And these are the questions that used to keep me awake at night, these kind of questions. And of course now I do realize what I just mentioned earlier, that that every single species of animal, no matter how seemingly insignificant or seemingly dangerous, is a very important part of the ecosystem which keeps all of us alive. So when I started off my musical career, as I mentioned, I was doing a whole lot of commercials for television and radio. And in a span of about 13 years, I did more than 3,500 commercials for pretty much every brand you can imagine. Whether it's Google or Microsoft or Airtel or Vodafone or TVS or Suzuki or Air India, Lufthansa, basically every brand and their competitor, I was creating music for them in different parts of the world. So when I finished off my dentistry, my schedule was such that I would wake up in the morning at about 8 o'clock or something like that, start working by about 9. And I would get a brief from an Indian client, that we have to create this piece of music. I would deliver that music by about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I would take a brief from a European client, and I would finish that off by about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock at night. And then 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock at night, I would take a brief from a Los Angeles-based client or a Vancouver-based client, and then I would finish that off. So I was working really hard, and that's the reason why in 13 years I managed to do more than 3,500 commercials. Now, after doing all of this, it was in around 2013 that I realized that these big brands have understood the power of music. They've understood the power of music so much so that they're ready to spend a few $1,000s on me to actually create a piece of music for them to sell something, because they're always trying to sell something. And not only that, they're ready to spend a few $1 million to actually air that music on television and radio. So they've understood that music is a really powerful language, not just for communicating a message, but for retaining that message deep in the consciousness of a listener. Like the songs that we learned during our childhood are songs that we never forget. If there are any morals in those songs, those morals dictate our lives, and we constantly think about it. So that is when I decided, almost as a sudden moment in my career, I decided that I'm going to stop all forms of commercial music. This was in 2013. I'll stop all forms of commercial music, and the only kind of music that I will make is music that is an extension of my own beliefs and my own personality, and music that is in my own tiny, small capacity to make this world a better place. So that is what I decided. So now I do not do any kind of commercial music. I do not do Bollywood. I do not do pop music. The only kind of music that I make is about the environment, sustainability, and positive social impact around those areas. So that is basically the journey that I have chosen to take in my life.
So you've been named the Global Ambassador for Kindness by the UNESCO Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development. Please, can you tell us more about the Kindness Matters campaign?
Sure. So basically, one organization that I work with a lot is the United Nations. So I'm the Global Goodwill Ambassador, and so I'll start off by telling what are the kind of stuff that I do with them. Not just that, but various things. So one is that I've got a title known as the United Nations Land Ambassador. So that is about so basically United Nations Land, that is the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. They basically talk about land degradation, because 2.8 billion people on this planet depend directly on land for their financial sustenance and for their livelihoods. So every single living being on this planet depends upon land for sustenance. That is their own life sustenance. But here I'm talking about financial sustenance. So 2.8 billion people depend upon land for that. So it is extremely important that land is protected and land is not degraded and land is restored. And of course, when it comes to climate change, as all of us know, is a result of excess carbon in the atmosphere at the basic of it. Like, what is climate change? Climate change is basically the sun's rays enters our planet, and what happens is that the excess rays goes back into the atmosphere. But then, because of pollution and because of an excess amount of carbon in the atmosphere, because of human activity, what happens is that there is more of the sun's rays and more of heat trapped in our planet. So because of that, polar ice caps melt. As all of us know, the density of ice is more than that of water, so ocean levels rise because of that. Various things happen, ocean currents change, salinity of water changes. Because of this, islands go underwater, coastal areas go underwater, weather conditions, we see it right now happening, right? That the weather is getting worse and worse. Whatever our natural disasters that we see nowadays are much worse than what they were previously. So things are getting worse and worse, and that's because of climate change.
So the cheapest way to combat the effects of climate change is basically restoring land, because land has got fertile land has got amazing carbon capturing capacity. So that helps. So that's what I do with the UNCCD. Then I also work with the UNHCR, that is the United Nations Refugee Agency. It's a 2-time Nobel Peace Prize winning organization. I'm the Goodwill Ambassador, and I work towards the betterment of the lives of refugees. This Independence Day, I don't know if anybody saw it. I did this version of the national anthem, which was sung by refugees from four different nationalities. So basically, that's why I work very closely with refugees to try to get them a better standard of living and things like that. Because these are people who have been forced to leave their country because of war, or because they are being persecuted. So it's very important that countries give them a home and make them feel welcome. Then the third thing is with UNICEF. So I work with UNICEF for children's rights, because at the end of the day, if you want to make this world a better place, you have to start with the children. There is no two ways about it. And even if you want to create a more environmentally conscious society, then you have to start with the children, because you have to start the conversation on conservation and sustainability at a much younger age. So, because I've always believed that that children are born with these beautiful qualities of compassion, of kindness, of empathy, of environmental consciousness. But the way we build our systems around us, the way we build our education system, we are systematically erasing that. That's what we're doing, because children don't need to be taught what compassion is, they have it within themselves. But we are just systematically erasing it from them. That's what we're doing. So that's what we need to do. We need to ensure that these qualities remain within children as they grow up. And the last thing, as you mentioned, with UNESCO, I work with them on this campaign known as Kindness Matters. So I'm the Global Kindness Ambassador. So what I do with that is that, again, if you talk about all these problems that I just mentioned, at the heart of it is basically kindness. Kindness to our forests, kindness to nature, kindness to one another, kindness to our natural resources. So basically, it's all about kindness. So the World Kindness Day is celebrated on November 13th every year. So basically, it's all about that. So if you talk about kindness, the thing about kindness is that if you talk about that quality, being inculcated through the education system, that's a very long-term approach, because that's not going to bring immediate effect. But we have to go, rather than having a palliative treatment or a symptomatic treatment of all the problems of our planet, the thing is that if you go right to the core of it, of the problem, it's just that we're not being kind to one another and we're not showing empathy to one another. So basically, that is what that campaign is all about.
You composed the anthem "The Born from the Land" with co-writer and fellow ambassador Baba Mal. So what's that all about?
Yeah, so I've composed quite a few anthems and musical pieces for the United Nations as being their ambassador. So one of them is basically the land anthem.
Very famous one.
Yeah. So I co-written this with my collaborator is this person called Baba Mal. So Baba Mal, if any of you all have seen the Black Panther movie, the Marvel Black Panther movie, so all the African voices that you hear in the background are him, because the thing about Baba Mal is that he's not only a legendary African singer and the most famous African singer today, but also he's a Sufi. So so that's the reason why they used his voice in the Black Panther soundtrack, which also won the Oscar for Best Soundtrack of the year, that particular year. They worked with him because his voice sounds like it is from nowhere, on this planet. But at the same time, it sounds like it's from everywhere on this planet. When you listen to it, it can sound like it's Indian, it can sound like it is Middle Eastern, it can sound like it's from Russia, it can sound like it is from Africa. But at the same time, when you listen to it, it can sound like it's not even from this planet. That's the way his voice is. It's got that unique quality, and it's got that the minute you listen to it, it's got that very strong spiritual feel. So that's why it was a huge honor for me to collaborate with this absolute legend. And and to create that particular land anthem. So if you are interested, you could check it out. It's called "Born from the Land," and you can listen to it on YouTube.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
You've said that music is not just about entertainment. I mean, you
Yeah.
have been talking about
Yeah.
that, and the benefits of music are many and many. So tell us a little more.
True, as I mentioned that for me, music is a very powerful language, for actually communicating messages. And if you look at, like, every country has got a national anthem, right? So why does every country have a national anthem? It's because music is so powerful. You know, the minute you listen to just the first few notes of the national anthem, it evokes a sense of patriotism, it evokes a sense of love for your country, and it affects you in a way that is very profound. And that is how powerful music is. Now, when it comes to spirituality, I have to admit that that I basically, I'm a complete atheist. I do not believe in God at all. So, but at the same time, I consider myself to be a cultural Hindu because I love the Vedas. I love the Gita is a book that I read at least once a year. So these are, and I believe that these are beautiful philosophies to live your life when it comes to, as I mentioned, coexistence. When it comes to, protecting the elements of nature. When it comes to, respecting all forms of life, and and these kind of things. But at the same time, I do not believe that that I have got like a higher plane or spiritual experiences, and I do not believe my music is spiritual. It's just an extension of what I believe. But when it comes to spirituality itself, these are my thoughts and just my own feelings that sometimes you look you experience a beautiful sunset, like an absolutely stunning sunset, or you go to the Himalayas and you see these beautiful mountains and they're so surreal, or you listen to the most beautiful piece of music, or you see a beautiful piece of art, and then it is this particular art or this particular piece of nature or this particular landscape is so beautiful, it's so shockingly and overwhelmingly beautiful that your mind is completely overwhelmed and your mind cannot process that beauty, because it's so amazing. So that is where people feel that they have a spiritual experience, and that's what I believe. I have a spiritual experience like very, very often, when I listen to a beautiful piece of music, or when I see a beautiful scenery, or or when I make a piece of music and I feel that this is exactly what I wanted, and this is exactly what I desired to create, So that's it. So basically, I believe that that is what the aim of every artist needs to be, to create that piece of art, whether it is a sculpture, whether it is a piece of fine art, or whether it's music, or whether it's poetry, which completely transports somebody to a plane where they're completely overwhelmed, where they just cannot process the beauty of that particular piece of art, and give them that so-called spiritual experience.
That's amazing. I'd like to invite anybody if you have any questions.
Of your life.
Correct.
So what would your advice be to relatively small town children like places from Jodhpur where facilities are less, studios are less, teachers are less, in terms of growing up for a music oriented career?
Like, for example, the collaboration that I did with Stuart Copeland, I could have done it while I was sitting down in Jodhpur. It did not matter if I was in Bangalore. And and these kind of collaborations, when it comes to long distance collaborations, online collaborations, the thing is that it is not like collaborating with somebody who's living like 2 houses down your street is the same thing as collaborating with somebody who's living in Africa or somebody who's living in America. So I guess that's the thing. But then when it comes to the art itself, like if your question is about making a career out of music, then my answer to that is a little bit of a rude answer. That along with being a musician, just being a musician is just not enough nowadays. You can be the best musician possible, but just being a musician is just not enough. You have to be 3 things. You have to be a musician, you have to be an entrepreneur, because you're constantly trying to sell something, and that is yourself, So you have to be really good at selling yourself, and that's why the entrepreneurship skills need to be absolutely amazing. And the third thing is that you have to have leadership quality, because making music is not an isolated, job, because you're working with various other musicians, you're collaborating, so that is on the creative aspect of it. Then on the marketing aspect of it, you're collaborating with more people. On the distribution aspect of it, you're collaborating with more people. If you're doing concerts, you need to collaborate with sound engineers, you need to collaborate with technicians, you need to collaborate with event organizers, managers, tour managers, and things like that. So if you do not have that leadership quality, it's not going to work. So now, when it comes to starting a career in music, again, like the question that I'm asked, which is sort of adjacent to your question, is that kids ask me, that I'm not able to convince my parents, that I want to be a musician and all. My parents don't want me to be a musician. So my answer to them again is the rude answer that if you do not have the leadership skills to convince your parents, and if you're not rebellious enough to convince your parents, then basically this profession is not for you.
Because the thing is that if you cannot convince your parents, then how can you convince 1 billion people that you're a good musician? Because you may be a fantastic musician, I completely agree with that. But you need to convince people that you are a good musician. And if you're unable to do that, this profession is not for you. And it's the same thing with parents. Parents tell you, oh my child, you know, like, do I give them, so I said that if you're not convinced, then forget about it, you know. Then probably music is not a profession for them, because it's not a traditional career path where you do your engineering and then you get campus selected and you start on a job, then after a couple of years you do an MBA, then you move up into management. So there's a traditional career path. But when it comes to the art, you have to forge your own path. There is no way, there is no traditional career path. So you have to forge your own path. And to do that, you have to have these leadership and these entrepreneurial skills. Otherwise, there is no way one can be successful no matter how talented you are. Watched a couple of Bollywood concerts. So what I realized is that when it came to the Bollywood concerts, and we had this discussion outside a little bit, that when it comes to Bollywood concerts, whether it is an A.R. Rahman, whether it's a Shankar Ehsaan Loy, or whether it's a Vishal Shekhar or whoever, whenever they go abroad, they are able to fill up stadiums, they are able to fill up large concert halls, but it is only the Indian diaspora that shows up for those concerts. Nobody else shows up for that concert. It's only the Indian diaspora. But the Indian diaspora itself is so strong that they are able to fill up stadiums with that, because we've got like over 150 million strong Indian diaspora all over.
So
No, that's what, because mentorship is not about somebody standing in front of you and talking to you. Mentorship is, to me, the more powerful mentorship is basically learning from other people. Learning from people who are the legends, and and learning from the experiences, reading about them, and figuring out how you can follow their path. So that's the idea. Because if you look at Pandit Ravi Shankar, when it comes to Indian music all over the world, because my music is primarily Indian, he's the person who opened the door. And then people like me, slip through that door, and we, we basically followed him into that path, So that's what, there are people who have, and I'm hoping that, maybe about 15, 20 years down the line, I'm able to do that with a new generation, because I'm a very bad teacher. I cannot teach people, even if I try to teach people. But I'm hoping that, 20 years down the line, when I'm about 60, then hopefully, my life will inspire other people. That's what I'm hoping for.
I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
How would you want to be remembered? By your fans, since you are into music, you are an environmentalist. So how would you want to be remembered?
It's difficult for me to say that, but because for me, I really do not care about anything after I've died.
Okay.
So that's it. So for me, everything is about while I'm living.
Okay.
And that's about it. So like for me, after I'm dead, I'm in the sand. So it's not like I'm going to know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just don't care about that. So for me, it's about when I'm on this planet, what best can I do, and how can I serve as many people as possible and as many life forms as possible. That's basically what it is.
Ricky, one question. Proud to have you here. And my question is what is your take on vocal? Because you have everywhere in the music, but vocal
No, I also compose music, like these anthems and all that stuff that I compose, I do with vocals, but it's a good question. Because there are two aspects to this. One is that sometimes when you create a piece of music which is instrumental, or the vocals, there are vocals, but the vocals do not have lyrics in it, So it's basically vocals itself used as an instrument, like Ustad Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan used to do very often. The thing is that the song is very open to interpretation. And it's also very visually evocative, where you have all these sceneries in your mind when you're listening to it and things like that. Whereas if you put a vocal to it with lyrics, you can keep it sufficiently vague, but at the same time, you're putting a face to the music and you're explaining to people what it's going to be like. It's just like, that if somebody is a fan of, let's say, like the Harry Potter novels, if you're a fan of the Harry Potter novels, I've not met a single person who is a fan of the Harry Potter novels who says that the movies lived up to their expectations.
nobody would.
Nobody will ever say that, because the novels itself is so visually evocative and it's so open to your own imagination that when you watch the movie does not live up to the imagination that you had, So it's the same thing with instrumental music and vocal music. Now the second aspect to this is that since my music is about the environment and and it's got very often it's got thematic elements of nature. A lot of people ask me that why don't you record, sounds of the forest and sounds of the birds and put that into your music? Because I never do that. Again, that is again an analogy between taking a photograph of a person and making a painting of a person. Sure.
And this is not a question, I just want a more elaborate answer on, do other forms of art inform your music? Do you think like a piece of poetry or a cinematic visual? What is it you use as a prompt? Because early in the conversation you mentioned how you started out in your student days as someone who could reach from, say, advertising agencies or people who give you an outline within which you're supposed to work. And then at some point you step out of that grid and you say, no, I'm going to do just music for the sake of music. So then what do you do?
It's a very good question actually. Because, so basically, previously I used to work on a brief. And I loved working with the advertising agencies simply because it was more like a workout. When you go to the gym, the more you go to a gym, the better you get at it. And it's the same thing with the advertising thing, because you do up to about 3 commercials a day. So you're constantly on your toes because, like, let's say yesterday I would do like a Tamil folk jingle. Today I would get to do like a Celtic jingle. Tomorrow I would get to do a hip hop jingle or a heavy metal jingle. So the idea is that you're constantly on your toes for these various genres of music, and all those experiences and those thought processes with the musicians that you work with find their way into your music. So that's the way it is. And also, that is what gave me a really, really good foundation in composition, because I would have to think on my toes and come up with compositions like almost and it sells them a lot of Kingfisher beers. That same piece of music, no matter how amazing and how creatively amazing it is, it cannot work for a Mercedes-Benz car. So the thing is that you have to get the brand right, and you have to get that brand values and the exact demographic that particular brand is reaching out to, because the Mercedes-Benz is not reaching out to the same people as a TVS by a Scooty would be reaching out to, So the thing is that you have to constantly understand what is the demographic that's going to reach out to, because it's going to be a waste of time for you to reach out to multiple demographics, So that is the idea. And of course, the other motivation was that, the threat that you would get from your client, that if you don't finish this off by this time, then this is what's going to happen to you, So that gets your creative juices flowing, So that's the idea. But then with that, you always experience things like writer's block, because you wonder when you get the brief and you start working on it, and then you're like, okay, I'm never going to be able to do this, And then you start thinking that, because I decided that I'm an atheist when I was like in about the 9th or 10th grade. And but even then, you start thinking that, maybe if I pray to God, I'll get this brief right. So all that happens, all that happens because there's so much of stress involved with that. Now the process is completely different, where it is like, I get inspired to write about something, like for example, if it's about human and elephant conflict, or it's about something, like I tell you about human and elephant conflict, so that it'll give you a process into a song that I've written. So basically what happens is that there's no deadline, because I'm my own boss and, and I'm writing for myself. So then it's all about that, that this product has to be absolutely amazing. And it has to be the best product that comes out of my studio. So if it takes 1 year, if it takes 2 years, if it takes 3 years, whatever it takes. So I've got at least on my hard drive of my computer, I've got at least about like 60 to 70 songs which are in various stages of completion. Because I'm just not happy with it, and only when I'm happy with it and I feel that okay, this song is finished, then I will put it out into the world. So I just start off on a song and it just remains incomplete. And many times, like 5 or 6 years later, I'll go back to my hard drive and I'll think, oh, this sounds pretty good, let me work on this a little more, and get there. So now this, do you remember that in 2020, when the pandemic had just started, this incident happened in Kerala, where there was this photograph which became really popular, where, that elephant, which is a female pregnant elephant, she was in the middle of a lake, and, and she was dead. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. So what happened with that particular incident was that, long story short, this pregnant female elephant, she was looking for food, she wanders out of the forest, she goes into a farmland which is adjacent to a forest, and she eats a pineapple fruit. And little did she know that the farmer had laden that fruit with explosives. So to keep away wild boars and to keep away elephants, So the thing is that she eats the fruit, it explodes in her mouth, and then it fatally, damages the mouth, and then she wobbles and she walks all the way to a lake. She stands in the middle of a lake and she dies while she's standing. And it was a very, very powerful image. This photograph of this female pregnant elephant standing in the middle of the lake and dead while she's standing up. And then of course, every single newspaper across the globe had this, whether it's New York Times, Los Angeles Times, African newspapers, Australian newspapers, European newspapers, Indian newspapers, everybody had this on their front pages because it was such a powerful image. And of course, in India, the knee-jerk reaction started, in the sense that especially among the youth, that that farmer should be hung upside down, that farmer should be killed, that farmer should be beheaded or whatever. What nonsense is this? Kerala is not God's own country, and and things like that, And I understand that the farmer definitely, absolutely needs to be punished, and that is the absolute truth. But at the same time, we in cities, we have to look inwards. Because if we do not have electricity for 5 minutes, like right now, we feel so inconvenienced, that why is there no electricity? If there is a new iPhone that comes out or a new OnePlus phone that comes out and it goes out of stock, then we're like, why can't they make more of these phones, Why can't they make more of these iPhones and these electronic gadgets? So if you think about it, where is all that coal coming from for all that electricity? It's coming from digging up those forests. Where is all that manganese, iron, silica, cadmium, lithium for making these iPhones coming from? It's coming from digging up these forests. And to protect his or her, farmland, and the crop. So he or she has to make this really painful decision. And this ridiculous decision which he or she should be punished for, but they have to make this very painful decision to actually, put explosives in these fruits. So that is what. So basically, that is what inspired me. When I heard the story, that's the first thing that I thought, that why are we city dwellers not looking inwards? Why are we blaming that last person? Why are we blaming that farmer? We have to blame ourselves for this because it's our consumption patterns which are causing that elephant to die, and which are causing that elephant to come out of the forest. And India, even though we are overpopulated, we do not have actually a problem of overpopulation. Our problem is basically of overconsumption. That is the problem in India. So we have to change our consumption pattern. We have to rethink our relationship with our food. We have to rethink our relationship with our fiber, the clothes that we wear. Everything has to be rethinked because at the end of the day, this is what is damaging those forests, damaging the ecosystems, and because of that, that poor elephant basically died. So I made this song called Love Divine, which is about nature being a reflection of ourselves. And the pain and suffering that we inflict on nature is pain and suffering that will eventually be inflicted on ourselves. But at the same time, sometimes it's not inflicted on ourselves itself, but it's inflicted on the human species. Or it could be inflicted on somebody who's living somewhere else, because they say even with climate change, the people who are the least at fault when it comes to climate change are the persons who are affected the most. Like for example, Pacific Island nations, they are the most environmentally conscious, nations. The Pacific Island nations, or or these atoll islands all over the world. They are the most environmentally conscious society. They don't have any carbon emissions, no factories, no industrialization. But they are the first people who are going to go underwater due to climate change. And the fault is basically the developing nations and the developed nations, because it's one atmosphere. Our carbon emissions goes into the atmosphere. And then basically ocean levels rise, as I mentioned, and since they are low-lying islands, they are suffering the consequences of our actions. So that is what is happening, So basically, we have to look at ourselves as being a species as a whole, rather than just caring about our immediate loved ones around us, Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on the album.
Thank you.
What I would like to know is the problems that you faced in your career as a musician, the hurdles you had to overcome to continue down the path of professional musician.
So every musician has problems, but to be honest, I've not had, to go a little back a little bit to make this into a little bit of a joke. The thing is that a lot of these publishers constantly contact me to write an autobiography on my life, like HarperCollins and Penguin and international publishers, write an autobiography on your life. And for me, my answer to them is that I've not had that much of a conflict in my life, and I've not had these terribly dark moments in my life to make an interesting book, So maybe give it some more time and maybe. But to be honest, of my music not being appreciated and things like that, but this is what every artist goes through. But I've not had like a really dark moment or or something where I've been completely penniless or and things like that. So these moments I've not experienced. Huh? Nothing major. So sorry to disappoint you, but I have to be honest over here because a lot of people make up stories about that I was in the worst form of my life and this thing happened and all this stuff. So I don't even pretend that has happened.
No enterprising publishing agent must have met you. They would have fabricated one for you.
No, they even tried doing that. They told me that we'll get somebody to write a book about you, and
right.
If you do not have the time, So that is it. So for me, that's not happened. But yeah, if there are no more questions, then what I'll do is that I'll just end with this. That there is this campaign that we've started, known as which Prabha Khaitan Foundation and I have started. It's known as Rewear for Earth. Okay. So I'll just explain a little bit about that to you. Now, the thing is that when it comes to sustainability, everybody has to find their own path. Now, there are a few things that I've done in my life. So I'll explain that to you. One is that I do not own a car. I used to own 3 cars up to 2013. And then I decided that when I travel abroad, I'm using public transportation. So why can't I do that in my own city? It's the easiest for me to learn that. So in my own city, I use public transportation. I use buses and I use the metro. And if I need to, then I get an Ola or Uber or something like that. But that's how it is with me, when it comes to public transportation, because public transportation, unfortunately, there's a huge stigma in India that once you buy a car, you cannot move backwards, or I cannot be seen in a bus, So that's the thing. Like my mom, she's like a major socialite in Bangalore. So she's like, my friend saw you getting in a bus, How can you do that to me, So that's the thing, So basically, we have to change that notion, and we have to show that, public transportation is cool, and you're actually thinking about the environment, and you're thinking about our planet when you're actually doing that. The second thing that I have is that at any given point of time, I only have 11 sets of clothes. So this suit that I'm wearing right now, if you go on my Instagram or Facebook, you will see it in at least 7 or 8 different functions. So that's how it is, So basically, at any given point of time, I've only got 11 sets of clothes. I buy good quality clothes. And I make sure that they last for a longer time, because at the end of the day, we do not understand our impact when it comes to when it comes to clothes. Because fast fashion is becoming a huge thing right now. Everybody wants to have a different outfit for every single Instagram post, and it's looked down upon if you're wearing the same thing for 2 functions and things like that. But at the same time, if you look at a pair of jeans, if you buy a pair of jeans, then think about how it has been started, like the starting process of it. First of all, the cotton has to be grown. Okay, now the cotton, for a single pair of jeans, you need about 12 to 13 plants of cotton. Now, so that will take an area which is as big as this room. And then you have to water it on a regular basis, for a couple of months till it gets harvested. And then after that, you have to, and of course, for cotton plants, they put a lot of pesticides also in it because it's not an edible plant. So they just douse it with pesticides. So then what happens is that then after that it has to be it has to be transported over large distances, sometimes over planes. So imagine the carbon footprint of it going to another country for processing. And then after that, once it's processed, then it goes for the weaving to a completely different country. Then over there it is manufactured. Then it is sold in a completely different country and it's dyed, it's manufactured, all of that stuff. So the water footprint for a single pair of jeans is 8,000 liters of water. On the processing, on watering the plant, all of that stuff. 8,000 liters of water for a single pair of jeans. For a single cotton t-shirt, it is 6,000 liters of water. So imagine, so the narrative is that, turn off the faucet while you're brushing your teeth and all that stuff, which is very important. But at the same time, you can be saving so much of water and so much of, you can be mitigating the effects of climate change so much by just, buying lesser clothes and just taking care of your clothes, So that is that. Then the next thing is that I get my carbon footprint audited every quarter. So there are multiple agencies which do this, just like like your financial auditing agencies. There are carbon footprint auditing agencies. So what they do is that they audit your carbon footprint right up to your ink usage, your traveling, your ground transportation, your air transportation. For me, in my case, my concerts and everything. And then basically they come up with a certain number, and then we have a meeting where we figure out how we can reduce the carbon footprint for the following quarter. And then what I do is that with the carbon footprint that I've generated, because it's not possible to lead a carbon negative or a carbon neutral lifestyle, the way the systems are built around us. So I mitigate my effects through mitigate my carbon footprint through tree plantations and through investment in renewable energy companies and things like that. So that's another point. And of course, I follow a vegetarian diet. A plant-based diet is the best way to go because the meat industry, along with the fashion industry, are the two most polluting industries currently on this planet. So especially the beef industry. So the thing is that it's very important for us to, of course, find our own path towards this because there's a very huge cultural significance when it comes to meat. But just try to reduce our meat consumption to whatever abodes with our conscience. So that's what we need to do. So I believe that so that's what I've done. I would love to be a vegan. I would love to get into a vegan diet, but I've tried it at multiple times and I've been unsuccessful. So right now I am a vegetarian, but an aspiring vegan.
I request Neeraj Sethia to come and present a token of our appreciation. I speak for everyone here today when I say that it's been a very inspiring session. Please accept our heartfelt gratitude. This session would not have been so interesting. It would have not been half as memorable had it not been for your attentive and involved audience. We are overwhelmed with your interaction and positive feedback. Thank you. We are indebted to Prabha Foundation and Taj Hari Mahal for making this session possible. We are grateful to Sri Cement for the support at all times. We are deeply appreciative of the media for their consistent support. Thank you.